think there's one point that really they haven't done a lot on that area. I think students are not the problem. I think our problem as a Yemeni community is the parents. I know the mosque does a lot, but the mosque should be a big target for us. I mean, there's lectures to parents. I mean, the parents, you cannot blame them. My dad didn't even go to high school, barely made middle school. So if he doesn't know a lot, and there's parents who do not know how to write a word in English. So how do you expect them to lead their children in the right direction? So as AAYSP members, we should go to the mosque, we should go to community gatherings, tell them the benefits of education, tell them what their students are going to do after they graduate, how much money they're going to make, what they're going to be as an educators. And to end with a joke, there's no jokes here, I don't know. So I don't know if you heard about this. You know, there's a student and his dad sitting in index, and this is the joke. And the child was saying, "Dad, I'm going to receive $30,000 as a scholarship to the university." And he was like, "Can we get that money for the house?" And he said, "No, it's only for the school." He said, "Forget about it. You're going to the University of Cape Town casino." So seriously, this is the problem. Parents just want money from anywhere. Even if they speak about scholarship, the first thing that comes in their mind, can we get the money to the house? So thank you, everyone. And I really, really think that we should target the parents. We should do more lectures on that. And I know I didn't hit on mainly the goals that we should do, the expectations. But Ms. Anisa Sahoubah, I just want to thank her in front of everyone. She's been a mentor for me. She's the director at the Access Youth and Education. She helped me in my path going to dental schools. I mean, she wrote me so many letters of recommendations, so many scholarships because of her. Thank you, Anisa. Thank you, everyone, so much.
Good morning again, everyone. My name is Anisa Sahoubah, Youth and Education Director over at Access. Now, I know for the sake of time, I'm probably going to deviate from my slides, so I'm not sure that I need the slides. I have over 27, so I'll make sure that I condense it. So Bassam covered some of the reasons why some of the youth are not motivated to go to college, to seek higher education, or even to graduate high school. What I thought I'd touch on is the idea of expectations, the impact of expectations in education. Because I think we don't always put that much emphasis on that. You know, we look at all of the other barriers, and to me, it's such a simple thing to do as educators. We hear that we can't do something, we internalize that, and you know, our success and our failures are dependent on that. And I think that's something we need to consider as we were speaking to children and to youth. There were a couple of very famous studies that I came across, and just very briefly, one of them was the blue eyes and brown eyes study, in which children were divided by eye color, blue eyes and brown eyes. And they were told on 2 separate days that, for example, the blue eyes, they were told that they were superior, you know, compared to all of the other students in the class. And then the next day, the opposite was told. The brown-eyed students were told that they were superior and everyone else was inferior. And both days, the students were given spelling tests. On the days that the blue-eyed students were told that they were superior, they scored high. And on the days that they were told inferior, they scored very low. The same thing happened with the brown-eyed students. Now, nothing changed. The only thing that changed was that they were told that they were superior, and that made all the difference in the world. So something to consider, you know, just going back to what Bassam was saying, when some students say, we're Yemeni, you know, we can't really do it. Somehow they got that impression. Someone gave them that impression. And I think it's our responsibility, and it's our duty, whether it's our own children or other people's children, to reverse that mentality. think, we do place a lot of emphasis on the school system and what they need to do. But I consider all of us educators. Sometimes we think educators are teachers or principals. We're all educators because we all can do something. We all have a role in this capacity, whether it's mentoring our own children, our neighbors, or others who are around us. And it's also our expectation to make sure that they raise their own expectations. Because one thing that always amazes me is if you ask a 3-year-old, for example, or a 4-year-old what they want to do when they grow up, they'll give you 3 professions. And something happens along the years where by the time they're teenagers, all of a sudden they can't think of one profession that they see themselves going into. So I think it's, again, our responsibility to make sure that the spirit remains from 3- and 4-year-olds all the way through until they succeed. So what can we do? That's the question. What can we do to raise expectations? What can we do to motivate students to succeed? And one example that I like to use is Einstein, right? The greatest genius. And one thing that he always emphasizes is that it's not that he's so smart, although some of us might disagree. It's that he stays with a problem longer. It's persistence. That's the difference, persistence. We all might fail, and I think that's something that we need to communicate to youth. We might fail, but it's not the end of the world. We can make U-turns, and we can go back to what the problem is and start over. We can just go to the next slide, please. Now, motivation, I don't think anyone can disagree that it has a huge impact on student achievement and just life success in general. But children who are motivated are more likely to do all of those things, and I won't go into all of them, but they're more likely just in general to succeed in school, succeed in life, succeed in their social life, their family life. So again, just a very important thing that we need to make sure that we address. And one other thing that I wanted to point out is that discipline and motivation are 2 sides to the same sword. Sometimes we wonder why our children misbehaving. I think it simply boils down to the fact that they're not motivated, they're not interested. And those who are interested usually tend to stay out of trouble because they're more focused. So again, it all goes back to motivation. So in the next several slides, I'll talk about just a few ways of motivating students, what we can do as a community and as mentors. First, we need to set the proper expectations. And those have to be specific. We tell children, for example, we expect you to do well in school. Well, what does that mean exactly? So I think we need to define some of those things. And to communicate them clearly to the child in the language that he or she understands. The second thing that we can do is to help our children set goals. Short-term goals, long-term goals. If something's embedded in a child from the time that they're younger, not to say that it's too late when a child is older, but particularly when they're younger, it really does make all the difference in the world. I know, I just look at myself as an example. And, when I talk to youth, I tell them, I come from the same background that you come from. There's nothing that you can tell me that would lead me to believe that you can't succeed or that you can't overcome a barrier. My parents were also immigrants. But I can remember from a very young age, and they're actually in the audience right now, but they have always told me that I can achieve anything. I really did have that belief. There wasn't anything, it's kind of funny now, but there wasn't anything that I thought that I couldn't achieve. And I think that really made a huge difference. So I encourage all the parents to really make a bigger effort. We might believe this, we might think this, but are we really articulating it to our children? That they can achieve anything. And, goals need to be, as we're setting goals, and I think that's on the next slide. I know I'm confusing you. I said I didn't need the slides, but now I do. So the goals need to be specific and measurable. For example, for, one of our children saying, we want them to improve in math, for example. If we tell them to do better, what does that mean? I think that's very confusing to a child. What does better mean? We can say, on your next math test, I expect that, 10 out of the 15 questions are correct, or that you improve by this amount. It gives them something to work towards, And if you have a goal, you know when you've reached it. If we don't have a goal, we don't know when we got there, right? And that's especially true for children. Another thing that we need to make sure that we do is to show children that school is important. And we do this by being an example. And if our parents didn't have the opportunity to go to school, they can be more involved in the school system. That's another way of showing that school is important. Just being involved, attending all conferences, meetings, school functions. And I think especially in high immigrant communities, interpreters are there. I know most of the correspondences, at Salina, for example, are translated into Arabic, and there are always interpreters there. So it's a very welcoming atmosphere, and I hope that's true for other immigrant populations. And another thing that I always tell parents, because sometimes they tell me, I don't read, I don't write. What is it that I can do to motivate my child or to help them succeed? And I always tell them there's so much you can do in terms of creating an environment at home that's conducive to learning. Knowing that the TV is off and homework is being done, radios are off, computers shouldn't be in bedrooms. There's so much that parents can do to make sure that at least at home, it's an environment that's appropriate for learning and for doing homework. And also just staying positive. Sometimes we don't know that children are always, they're listening, they're watching our body language, they're listening to what we're saying. And they know when we're being positive and when we're being negative. So it's always important, I think, to talk positively about a subject. I've heard parents, for example, saying, my child doesn't do well in math because I've always hated math in school too. The child is right there listening to this. So immediately, the child is thinking, there's no hope. My parents made it without math. Why do I need to try? So just kind of, being aware of that as well. Supporting a child's learning style, I can go on for days about this, but just trying to find out how a child learns. Is it by hearing, listening, doing? Because every child is different, and then providing those things for our children. If they don't like reading, for example, there are so many books on tape. If they're a visual learner, then it's okay to get books with pictures, at least, for a while. So that's just something to consider as we're trying to figure out what a child's best learning strategy is. The other thing that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned is that we need to stop telling children that they're smart. It's good for them to hear that they're smart, but it's even more important for them to hear that they have to try hard. Because there are so many, I can just think about my experience, so many high school students that I went to school with that I was convinced that they're going to succeed. I was convinced they're going to graduate college and just do really great things. And there were others that I probably considered average. And it's amazing how many of those, quote, average students have succeeded. And it's because they're the hard workers. So that's what I always tell youth. And, being smart, I think that's subjective. So hard work is definitely the way to go and something that we need to make sure that we articulate. Showing relevance, students are always wondering how what they're learning is applicable to their life. So I don't think we should say, because sometimes I hear this all the time, sometimes I'm tempted to say it, you have to learn it because I said so, or because it's in the curriculum. They don't want to hear that, obviously. What they do want to hear is that they will use it in life. So any chance we get, I think we should make some time to explain that. Speaking the language of encouragement rather than praise. Sometimes they sound the same, but actually there's a huge difference. Praise discusses results. If a child does well in math, great job. A lot of opinion words using the words great and good. And usually we praise a child when they do something right or something that we expected them to do. Now encouragement, on the other hand, is much different.